Why do some people seem to carry an almost inexhaustible supply of drive inside them? That is a question a lot of people find themselves asking the moment they discover David Goggins, widely known as the toughest man alive. In this episode on Mind Force, I want to walk you through the lessons I've taken from Goggins' story, how an ordinary person becomes extraordinary, and what that actually means for the rest of us. Before we get into it, if you haven't already, subscribe to Mind Force so you never miss an episode on learning, performance, and living well. All right, let's get into it. So first, who exactly is David Goggins? If you search the toughest man on any platform, his face comes up immediately alongside a biography that honestly sounds made up. He is the first person in U.S. military history to complete the training programs of 3 separate elite forces: Navy SEAL, Army Ranger, and Air Force Tactical Air Controller. Now, to put that in context, each of those programs individually pushes people beyond what most of us would consider humanly possible. We're talking about swimming in freezing water, non-stop physical assessments, combined air and ground combat operations. Every person who goes through that training is, in every literal sense, betting their life on every single rep. His athletic achievements are just as staggering. He broke the world pull-up record with 4,390 pull-ups in 17 hours. He has completed over 51 ultramarathons, races that go well beyond the standard 26.2 miles, including the Moab 240, a race spanning 240 miles, or roughly 386 kilometers. Think about that. Not once, not twice, over 50 times. And beyond the physical feats, David Goggins is the author of 2 best-selling books, Can't Hurt Me and Never Finished, which together have sold over 6 million copies. He also works as a paramedic in Canada, supporting doctors in emergency situations. His story has pushed millions of people around the world to step outside their comfort zones and break through what they thought were their limits. Now here's the thing. I'm not an exception to that. After listening to David's interview on the Huberman Lab podcast, I was genuinely floored. His mindset stopped me in my tracks, and that led me down a rabbit hole. 4 more podcast episodes about him and a deep revisit of both his books. What I want to share with you today are the lessons I carried away from all of that, the ideas I've actually sat with, tested, and found to be true. Let me start with something that might challenge how you think about motivation. Most of us believe motivation comes from positive sources: a great playlist, a reward waiting at the finish line, teammates who share our goals. And look, those things are genuinely valuable. I'm not dismissing them. But here's the reality. Life doesn't guarantee you'll have access to those things consistently. And if your motivation depends on them, you're building on an unstable foundation. In his interview with Andrew Huberman, David Goggins revealed something striking. He said there is a lot of anger inside him. He actually used the word haunted. He described himself as haunted by the things that drove him forward. Now let's break that down. His childhood was brutal by any measure. He was beaten by his own father from a very young age. He faced racial discrimination because of the color of his skin. He struggled with learning disabilities and was too afraid to speak up in class. He developed severe weight problems and reached 134 kilograms, nearly 300 pounds, by the age of 24. At that point, he was working night shifts exterminating cockroaches in restaurants. There is genuinely nowhere in that story to find easy positivity. And because of that, Goggins could not afford to wait for inspiration to show up. He could not sit around hoping some magical person or moment would pull him out of the darkness. He had to do it himself. And what he taught himself to do, what became his superpower, was to take those negatives, those hardships, and convert them into fuel. The first thing he did was stop blaming his circumstances. Now here's the thing. He had every reason to. In his situation, the excuses practically wrote themselves. Overweight at 24, unstable employment, a childhood marked by abuse and discrimination. Most people would call that a reasonable explanation for going nowhere, but Goggins chose differently. He accepted the reality that he was going to have to work 2 or 3 times as hard just to reach what a normal person might consider an ordinary life. And instead of resenting that, he let it push him. Those negatives became the engine. Not in spite of his circumstances, because of them. You can see this clearly in how he described Navy SEAL training in Can't Hurt Me. The instructors were brutal. They came after him hard. And rather than resist or complain, Goggins made a decision. He was not going to let them win. He trained so far beyond what they could imagine that they eventually ran out of ways to break him. He smiled through every physical punishment. When his teammates rested, he kept going. His resolve grew so unshakable that the instructors reportedly got tired of trying to punish him because it was obvious he was enjoying it. They couldn't take his soul, and that was exactly his intention. That same principle extended to online criticism. When negative comments piled up on social media, David's response was to record himself reading all of them aloud. And whenever he felt his motivation slipping, he'd play that recording back as a reminder that he could not give those people the satisfaction. Now, I find that genuinely impressive, and I've started practicing it myself. I'm not going to pretend I never feel discouraged or want to quit, but I remind myself that being willing to face difficulty and tedium, the things most people run from, is exactly what sets someone apart. Goggins taught me to look at myself honestly and say, you have 2 choices. You can sit there and complain and do nothing, or you can double your effort and become a better version of yourself. And even if you fail, at least you'll have a story. Or at the very least, you'll fail less badly than when you started. Now, I want to be clear about something before we go further. I'm not suggesting that David Goggins' lifestyle is right for everyone. And yes, plenty of people look at him and say his approach isn't logical, isn't sustainable, isn't healthy. I understand those arguments. But here's what none of those arguments can erase. Everything he does is an experiment on his own mind. He is constantly testing how far his mental resolve can go under extreme conditions. Think about it this way. We've all been through countless physical challenges, gym class endurance tests, fitness assessments, but how many of us have ever genuinely pushed the mental side? How many of us have actually tested what our mind is capable of before deciding we've hit our limit? Testing your mental limits is the key to unlocking potential you don't even know you have. It also reveals the mental chains that are quietly holding you back, ones you might not notice if you never put yourself under pressure. Most of us quit at the very first sign of difficulty, and our minds are very good at making that sound reasonable. I'm playing the long game. No need to exhaust myself. Or even less logical. Life is already hard enough. Why make it harder on purpose? Now here's the thing. I agree that sometimes quitting is the right call and that pushing past genuine limits can backfire. But how do you know where your real limit is if you've never crossed it even once? If you stop running the moment you feel tired, you'll never know how far you can actually go. And here's what's interesting. Most of the time, if you push through that first wave of exhaustion, you'll find you can go at least another kilometer. And sometimes, the run actually starts to feel energizing once you get past it. But there's another cost to quitting early that we don't talk about enough. When you quit at the first sign of difficulty, you label yourself. If you score badly in math once or twice and immediately walk away, that label sticks. I'm just bad at math. But give yourself time. Try a different approach. Teach yourself, ask a friend instead of a teacher. I'd bet you'd surprise yourself. My point is simply this: you don't have to follow one fixed path. Give yourself permission to try as many approaches as it takes. The process itself will give you the real answer. In Can't Hurt Me, Goggins wrote, "When you think you can't go any further, you've only reached 40% of your actual capacity. That imaginary wall is a ceiling we built ourselves. So try this. Run 1 more kilometer when you feel like stopping. Do 2 more reps when your muscles start to burn. Come back to the math problem tomorrow if you can't solve it today. You will surprise yourself with what you become." Let me break that down from a neuroscience angle because Dr. Andrew Huberman made a point in that podcast interview that genuinely changed how I think about this. He explained that when we push ourselves to do something uncomfortable every single day, we create a measurable positive impact on a region of the brain called the anterior mid-cingulate cortex, or AMCC. This is the part of the brain associated with willpower, and it sits at the intersection of emotion, cognition, and behavior. Here's the fascinating part. People with a larger AMCC tend to have stronger willpower. A smaller AMCC is commonly observed in people who are obese. Meanwhile, athletes, people who live long lives, and people who demonstrate resilience under real-world challenges all tend to have a larger AMCC. And here's the part that really gets me. If you stop doing things you don't want to do and only do what feels comfortable, the AMCC actually shrinks, which means willpower is not something your brain just either has or doesn't have. It is something you build or let atrophy. In other words, deliberately putting yourself through psychological discomfort and pushing through it literally grows your capacity for resilience. Willpower is something we have to build every single day, and it starts with the smallest things, going for that run when you don't feel like it. That's it. Now let me push this a little further. When exactly do you actually call yourself disciplined? If you can only work out when you have music, only study in a coffee shop, only clean your apartment when your parents are on their way over, how long can you really sustain that? To me, discipline is built in the moments when you recognize the thing you don't want to do or the thing you're tempted to postpone, and you choose to do it anyway, day after day, without letting yourself off the hook. And here's a hard truth. Even if you've done something genuinely difficult and felt proud of yourself for it, if you never go back and do it again, if you spend the rest of your life coasting on the story of that one time, you will lose that courage, quietly, gradually. Think about it this way. Say you're afraid of water, and one day you force yourself to jump in. Great. That's real progress. But then what? If all you do is tell the story to people around you and you never get back in the water a second time, a third time, a 10th time, that fear isn't going anywhere. The same goes for anything. Maybe you used to be good at math, used to run fast, used to be a strong swimmer. I'm genuinely happy for you. But if that only happened in the past, no one looking at you today can see it. There is no permanent certificate for resilience. It has to be renewed constantly. That's exactly why David Goggins, who is now a millionaire, still puts himself through grueling, low-paying work like paramedic shifts and smoke jumping, parachuting into remote locations to fight wildfires. He does it because he understands that willpower, like muscle, follows a simple rule: use it or lose it. Train it consistently and it grows. Let it sit for a day, a week, a month. It fades. Give it a year, and you won't recognize what you used to be capable of. This brings me to what I think is the most important lesson of all, and the one that took me the longest to accept. Real change begins with radical honesty about your circumstances, your world, and yourself. The truth that you can't change the conditions you were born into. Maybe you're not as naturally attractive as someone else. Maybe learning doesn't come easily to you. Maybe your environment is genuinely difficult. And then, and this is the harder part, you look inward. Maybe you're lazy. Maybe you're not always honest with others or with yourself. Maybe you have a tendency toward arrogance or self-absorption or jealousy. Here's the thing. Most of us have at least a few of those traits. I know I do. But almost nobody is willing to admit it. And that unwillingness to admit it is exactly why we don't change. So stop sugarcoating yourself. Stop consuming messages that tell you you're already perfect and letting yourself believe it. Sometimes you need to be genuinely critical of yourself. Yes, it might make you uncomfortable with who you are right now, but I'd rather feel that discomfort and change than feel comfortable and stay exactly where I am. That mindset is exactly what pulled David Goggins out of the darkest period of his life. And honestly, it's what pulled me out of a rough period during my teenage years too. I started training and reached a level of physical health I'm actually proud of. Not because I told myself to love myself more, but because I loved myself enough to admit I was weak. I couldn't lift a 10-kilogram weight, and I wanted to change that. If I had been gentler with myself back then, I'd probably still be reaching for a sugary drink every time I was thirsty and stopping my run after 30 seconds. I got over my fear of math, not by convincing myself my brain just wasn't built for numbers, but by sitting down with those problems, day after day, and figuring them out one at a time. And I used to be a kid who stuttered, who sat alone in class, who dreaded being called on. Now I've spoken at TEDx twice, run workshops at the US Embassy twice, and hosted numerous smaller learning workshops. I didn't get there by accepting my weakness as permanent. I got there by understanding exactly what I was up against and grinding through it, rehearsing every talk dozens of times, and stepping forward because I believed the stories I was sharing had real value. So if someone asks me what I'm most proud of, the answer isn't any viral post, or a prestigious job, or a stage moment. It's the fact that I show up every day trying to be 5% better, sometimes just 1%. The formula for self-improvement is actually very simple. Look directly at your mind and say, I am not finished. I have a lot to work on, and I accept that, and I'm ready to change. I want to close with something I genuinely believe about the generation we're living in. And this applies regardless of your age, gender, or background. We are living in an era where comfort has become a disease. We have more convenience than any human generation in history, and that convenience is quietly costing us something. More people today die from being overweight than from starvation. Technology has made movement, learning, and even relationships easier than ever. And while the benefits are real, we are also trading something away. We are losing the will to push past comfort. To use Andrew Huberman's language, the modern world is one of the primary reasons our AMCC keeps shrinking. And the consequences are showing up everywhere. Mental illness rates are higher than they have ever been. More and more people feel like their lives lack meaning, and they turn to substances or extreme stimulation as a solution. What they don't realize is that those things only spike dopamine, the brain's reward chemical, temporarily. The relief doesn't last. The emptiness comes back. The approach I've come to believe in is this: challenge yourself continuously. Don't be afraid to do what is hard. Break your own limits deliberately and consistently. That is how you escape the pull of negativity and find real, lasting satisfaction. Through that process, you'll discover a sense of fulfillment that no substance can replicate. The pride that comes from doing something difficult, the confidence that comes from knowing you can, and the unshakable will that is forged by doing hard things again and again. Thank you so much for listening all the way to the end. And honestly, if you've made it this far, I think you already know that part of you is ready for a change. Don't hesitate. Don't get discouraged. Because just by being here, I know you're someone who is always reaching for a better version of yourself. Thank you, and leave a comment below, and let me know what you took away from this.